Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is my pleasure and honor to have the opportunity on this occasion to say a few words about the difficult times that Jewish people, including my family, were forced to go through only because they were Jewish. Today, about 80 years later, the current situation begins to resemble those tough times. Never again seems to be happening again, just around the corner, in front of our eyes, wide open. As a son of Holocaust survivors from Croatia, I believe the events like this one are more important than ever. Too many around the world decide to turn a blind eye on anti-Semitism on campuses and on our streets, or worse, to fully endorse it. This cannot be tolerated if we sincerely believe in the promise made to those that survived the Shoah. Recently, the presidents of 3 leading US universities were questioned by the US Congress Commission investigating the tremendous rise of anti-Semitism and Jew hate behavior in their schools. Calling for the genocide of Jews is against the policy of their institutions, but only based on context, they stated, meaning it is not that bad and certainly not prohibited. Just 3 days ago at Leicester Square in the middle of London, 3 young people were almost lynched by a hostile Arab mob because they spoke Hebrew. The police failed to intervene. And so on, multiplied by thousands in the US, Western Europe, and elsewhere. My friends and myself find this unbelievable, and the call to arms is forthcoming. Now back to our main topic. I was a kid from an Austro-Hungarian family. My grandparents came from Bosnia, originating from Prague, Austria, northern Croatia, and Budapest. My grandfather Juro graduated from medical school in Vienna in 1910, the same year my father was born, and became one of the leading dentists in Zagreb between the wars. As a young woman, my mother, Ivo Jelinek, opened haute couture business in Zagreb just before the war. She was looking for a handsome, eligible man from a respectable Jewish family, and along came my father, Ivo Jelinek, who filled that description. He went to medical school in Berlin, but in 1933, when Hitler came to power, he had to leave, but was able to continue in Basel, next door. After graduating in Switzerland, he returned to Zagreb, where my family's fate was sealed. Jewish life in Zagreb was rich and well developed. Among 12,000 Jews, 5% of population, there was a significant number of skilled and famous people who left lasting traces. Jewish community was well integrated and contributed significantly toward general development during decades, despite the presence of the Austro-Hungarian relatively mild type of anti-Semitism. All of this quickly and finally disappeared after the Nazis brought a Quisling regime to power on April 10, 1941. At that moment, with the introduction of racist laws, the run for survival began. Only 20% of the Jewish population of ex-Yugoslavia made it. My mother immediately obtained false papers and went by train with her fresh husband, his parents, and a few valuables that they could hide to the Croatian-Italian border, which they had to cross on foot during a big storm. Italy had control of that coastal parts of Croatia, and that saved their lives. Meantime, in Zagreb, the situation for the Jews and of course some other groups became catastrophic. My older uncle Imre, 27 years old, economist, was together with some other young men, Jews, Serbs, and Croatian communists, executed in Dubrava forest, part of Zagreb. My younger uncle, Istvan or Ivo, 19, was one of many young people assembled by Ustašis at the Građanski football stadium in Maksimir. When they ordered the Jews to step forward, everybody did so, the Jews and the non-Jews. This fantastic event did not prevent the assassins to ship all the Jewish youth to Lika, where they were slaughtered and thrown into deep pits. When my mother heard the shocking fate of her two brothers, she decided to try to save her parents who were still in Zagreb. She went to Italian chief of police in Rijeka, told him the whole story, and helped by the good looks and a few tears, she obtained documents saying that she was the wife of a high-ranking Italian officer. As such, and elegantly dressed, there was no problem to return to occupied Zagreb. When she entered the apartment, they were all crying. All this because they thought that police had come for them, and my mother to see them still alive. As for my father's younger brother, Hansi, he did not want to study, and therefore in 1938, my grandfather bought him a one-way ticket for the ship Trieste-Haifa. So he made the Aliyah. He wanted his girlfriend Miriam from Varaždin to join him in Palestine, which was easier said than done. In early 1941, there were barges on the Danube River taking the Jews to the Black Sea and over Turkey to Eretz Israel. Miriam was lucky to take the last one that passed through. The next one was stopped by the Germans, and a few hundred passengers were taken to Sajmište, a part of Belgrade where they were all liquidated. The family of Hansi, in Hebrew Yohanan ben Tzvi, who now reposes at Kibbutz Yiftach on the northern border, has grown to over 25 members, a happy ending. The brother of Miriam, who was a Vienna-educated textile engineer, managed a well-known silk factory in Varaždin. The Ustašis killed him early on. His pregnant widow gave birth to a baby boy in a hospital in Zagreb in 1942. They had around 30 other Jewish mothers with their babies that they smuggled through the windows by good and courageous people to be saved from the Ustašis. They went back to Varaždin, but the young mother Zdenka was betrayed and she finished in the Jasenovac death camp. I saw the postcard mailed from Zagreb railway station asking good people to stay to save her baby. I couldn't contain my tears. And the good people indeed took the two Jewish babies on bikes hidden among geese and brought them to a nearby village where they played with other Christian kids until the end of the war. The whole village protected them. After the war, Miriam's nephew was taken to Israel and eventually became one of the leading sociologists in the country. He had 3 sons, all taller than me. Well, I am not very tall. And all officers of the IDF. Nice story. A film was made on his life by Yasmin Kadomash. Today, the baby is 82, and his name is Yair Palgi. I'm currently trying with Yad Vashem to name the 3 concerned doctors at Petrova Hospital, the writers among the nations, but it goes very slow, if at all. Too bad the guy that spoke here is not here, you know. Let me come back to our main topic. I apologize for my repeated drifting away. My family enjoyed a comfortable life in emigration until mid-43, when all changed since Mussolini's Italy capitulated and the Germans with Eustachius took over the coastal regions. The neighbors came one evening and said that they had to leave at once. So again they were on the move, this time by foot over the mountains into Lika region to join the partisans. Her parents joined them a bit later. Since my father was a medical doctor, he received the rank of captain and joined the mobile hospital. In order not to be separated, they said my mother was his assistant. But conditions in the field were more than rough, often on the move, in permanent risk of ambush, illnesses, hunger, cold winters, miserable supplies, but as a majority they survived these 3 tough years. On 8 May 45, Zagreb was finally liberated. Their lives were saved and a new era began. My mother got into Zagreb on that day with the 1st Proletarian Brigade under the command of Kocha Popovic, dressed in a uniform that she made herself from parachute material. Jewish life, however, was utterly destroyed in all of ex-Yugoslavia, like everywhere else. One half of those who miraculously survived immigrated to Israel in the late 40s, while my parents decided to stay behind. I was born in 47, as this young gentleman said, did not know what a Jew meant since nobody spoke about that. My parents mentioning their stories very rarely. But honestly, the anti-Semitism then and up until now in Croatia was practically inexistent. My father had his own private dental practice and was a professor in dental medicine at the university. He died in 2003 at the age of 93. My mother opened again a haute couture shop and was quite successful. She made models and traveled around the world in the 60s, had fashion shows in New York, Hollywood, Tokyo, Delhi, etc. She was on TV presenting fashion from behind the Iron Curtain, even though luckily Yugoslavia was not part of it. She was called the Dior of Yugoslavia, engaging the top US models at the time. When asked why she traveled 3rd class on the Queen Mary sailing over the Atlantic, she responded because there was no 4th class. But after having sold all her models, she was returning in the 1st class. Zuzi was quite often in the papers and on TV. Everybody knew her Jewish origin and her history. Later in her life, she wrote a dozen books on fashion and as well as human relations. She was called Dr. Ruth of Croatia. The name Zuzi became a household name, and even today, precisely 8 years after her death at the age of 99, most people know who she was and what kind of jokes and advice she was giving freely in public. Myself, after having graduated mechanical engineering in Zagreb, I went to Montreal for an MBA degree at McGill. With the sizable Jewish community there, I started to pick up the basics of Judaism. In '76, I got married, like most of us did, to a good-looking young attorney at law. Miraculously, our marriage is still working fine. Due to the base my mother established in Switzerland, we moved to Geneva in '78. And here we are 45 days later. Since then, I have been a member of the committee of the main Jewish community in Geneva, CIG, and the president of Maccabi Geneva for 10 years. I also participated in 12 Maccabiade games in Israel and Europe for the Swiss basketball and tennis teams. Now, growing old, I have the privilege of sharing the story of my family and myself with you nice people. Hoping this was not too long and too boring, wishing you all the best, and that we as a Jewish nation with our friends once again overcome victoriously the difficult times as we did on many occasions in the past. God bless you and shalom.